In the 2000s, there have been two amazing stories about voting in the great state of Florida. One of those stories is very well known. The other one is barely known at all, but has just become really, really important. The first one was in the year 2000, when this happened. The nail-bitingly close race between Al Gore and George W. Bush resulted in the race being called and then uncalled, and then a cacophonous, disorganized, politicized, intimidated counting process was ultimately called off in what was considered to be one of the most anomalous and partisan U.S. Supreme Court decisions of the modern era. And so George W. Bush became the president-elect. And then a bunch of newspapers from Florida and nationally decided to commission a study. They hired a company to count all the votes that had been cast in that election in Florida. By then, it was more than a year after the fact, but the study showed that if you did count all the votes in Florida that year, Al Gore won, incidentally. But by then, it was 11 months into George W. Bush's presidency. In 2004, when President Bush ran for re-election against Senator John Kerry, Mr. Bush clearly won Florida. In fact, he won it handily. He won by 5 points. The electoral map of Florida that year looked like this. Pretty red, right? But then in 2008, the second amazing Florida voting story of the 2000s unfolded to much less national attention. And that story is that between the election in 2004 and the election in 2008, the Democratic Party figured out how to win Florida again. It showed on Election Day when the iconic swing state of Florida had swung decisively by almost 250,000 votes. There was no nail-biting about Florida in 2008. The state was called essentially as soon as the polls closed. Barack Obama had won the state and won it big. And mainly, the Democratic Party achieved that over time in the lead up to that election by registering a ton of people to vote in Florida. In Florida, in the run-up to the presidential election, Democrats registered more than twice as many new voters as Republicans did. The Democrats' registration edge over Republicans in Florida in 2008 was 660,000 people, up from 280,000 in 2006. By Election Day 2008, thanks to voter registration drives, there were 660,000 more Democrats registered to vote in Florida than Republicans. You want to know why it was not close in Florida in 2008? Look at this. Here's how first-time voters in 2008 in Florida cast their ballots. Newly registered first-time voters went for President Obama by a 19-point margin. Clearly, this must be stopped. And so now the Republican legislature in the great state of Florida is fast-tracking a massive overhaul of Florida's elections laws. A massive overhaul that would make voter registration drives difficult to impossible to carry out in that state. No more new voters. Not with those kind of results. Republicans can't afford it. If you want to get people registered to vote in Florida right now, you can do so without much hullabaloo. This is what the League of Women Voters does. It's what church groups do. It's what Cub Scouts do. It's what college students do. It's an accessible across-the-board civic activity like it always has been. Register to vote. Register in either party. Register as an independent. Does not matter. But register. Voter registration drives. If you want to do a voter registration drive, you just pick up a stack of voter registration applications. Get your card table. Set up outside the grocery store. Let people fill them out and then go turn them in. That's how it works now. Florida Republicans want to change the law. So if you want to register people to vote, if you want to even volunteer with a group that is registering people to vote, this means you, Timmy the Boy Scout, you're going to have to register with the state in advance. You have to register as a citizen deputy assistant voter registrar or something. I don't know what they're going to call it, but you have to register with the state in advance if you want to volunteer to work at voter registration drives under this Republican proposal that's moving through the Florida legislature. Also, you have to take part in some as yet unknown electronic voter information database upload system, Timmy. And if you don't get those voter registration forms submitted from the people you've gotten registered within 48 hours of the time they have signed them, not only are those voter registration forms automatically invalid, but you, Timmy the Cub Scout, you will be charged fines of at least $50 and up to $1,000 for each application you turn in past the 48-hour deadline. If you're Timmy's den chief, would you let his Boy Scout troop register voters with that hanging over your head? This seems to me to be designed to end voter registration drives in Florida. According to the Brennan Center for Justice, which is a nonpartisan organization that studies this stuff, community-based voter registration drives are particularly important for low-income citizens, students, young voters in other words, and minorities. Those are the people who tend to get registered at voter registration drives. So those are the people whose voter registration, Florida Republicans' new law, would have the effect of kiboshing on a large scale. Here's how those groups voted in 2008. Low-income Florida voters went for Barack Obama in 2008, 66% to McCain's 33%. Young Florida voters aged 18 to 24 voted for Mr. Obama, 60% to John McCain's 39%. Latinos in Florida voted for Mr. Obama, 57% to John McCain's 42%. Black voters in Florida went for Mr. Obama, 96% to John McCain's, is that right? Oh yeah, 4%. If you are a Republican in Florida, wouldn't it be great to just be able to reduce the number of those people who are registered to vote, to reduce the number of people who get registered in that way by reducing the means by which they get registered? The Obama re-election campaign has posted online a new strategy video. They say it's their strategy for how they plan to win re-election for President Obama in this next election. They posted it online yesterday. President Obama's campaign manager is Jim Messina. You can see him there. In the video, he explains that the first priority, step one of what President Obama's campaign needs to do to win re-election in 2012, step one, what do they need to do first? Expand the electorate. Meaning register people to vote who aren't already registered. How are they going to do that in Florida?